really want to encourage people to not be shy and be a part of the conversation. Let's reflect together. Let's try to tune in to divine guidance and be a part of the conversation. So, inshallah, without further delay, we turn to Dr. Yamina. Jazakumullah khair.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. So today, actually a few days ago, we were talking with some friends and there was mention of how distracting the world has become, and then the more we talked, we eventually concluded that it's more about how we deal with the world, how we perceive the world, and that even in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, people had the same problems of ghafla, and what came to mind was the event when we're told in a hadith that while in Medina, the Prophet ﷺ, it was during the Friday, the Jumu'ah prayer. He was giving the Friday sermon, and then a caravan arrived, and then the people in the mosque rushed out to the caravan, and they left the Prophet ﷺ while he was standing on the mimbar and preaching. Subhanallah. And before I go any further, I would love to hear what does this report, this event, what does it make you think of? How do you feel about it? What are your thoughts or feelings about it? It would be nice if you could share.
It reminds me, Assalamu alaikum, of when the adhan, I hear the calling of the adhan, and then at the same second, something totally trivial comes up and I rush to do the trivial thing. And I might get so uptaken by that trivial thing that I might come back to prayer just before the next one. So I get totally distracted. And this is exactly, for me, the same thing where the adhan, you've heard the adhan. It's not that I did not hear the adhan. I heard the adhan, but something very trivial came up right away. And I just astaghfirullah.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Anything else? It doesn't have to be what you do, but how it makes you feel. I mean, because we probably feel like if only we were with the Prophet ﷺ, then can you imagine you are with Habibullah, with the beloved Prophet? Of course, there's part of us to say, of course it would have been easier. Now we have all these distractions around us, and it's very difficult to focus, and it was so easy those days. And do you feel that way? Does anyone feel that way?
I sometimes feel that way. I sometimes feel it's hard.
What's the question actually? I missed the words, so the whole question I wasn't clear about. What is it?
Can someone answer the question, please?
There was an event where the Prophet ﷺ was in the middle of giving a sermon, and a caravan came to like Medina, and people heard the caravan coming in, and they left the Prophet standing up giving the sermon and left.
Like most of the Jama'ah left, except you.
Yeah, except the ones who really know what does it mean to have the Prophet. So Dr. Emina's questions were just hearing the story, what does it bring to your heart? And another question for that was like, you know, have you ever felt like if I was there at the time of the Prophet that everything would have been easier, I would have been able to do those things that are difficult for me now? So yes, one of these two questions.
Thank you.
Zahra, I think you had something.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yeah, I think a few things came to mind. So one was like, kind of like, oh, they did that, you know? And then it also, I think it helped me have a little more compassion for myself, not necessarily to make an excuse, but maybe not to expect like everything, you know, to be like living without ghafla complete, you know, all the time. And then also the power of distraction too, you know, just to be aware of its pull. So just a few things that came to mind.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. Actually, now that I understand the question and I've gone and read the ayah just now, it's so interesting because I've never thought of it before, and I don't know what to think about it, because I don't know whether this is a descriptive, one of the descriptive ayahs where we are informed about some tendencies. I don't relate to tijara, to trade and business at all. Lahu, if lahu means play, if people have left the Prophet ﷺ to go be, you know, do trade and commerce and business, I don't relate to that. But if it's to go play or entertain themselves, I do relate. I mean, I'm more in that camp, and I cannot imagine either, actually, unless this is just a statement of how human nature is, that people get bored, and that it's pretty normal to leave the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam and go do something more fun.
Are you analyzing? Because we're not asking, we're not analyzing, we just, what impression, what does it bring into you? So is this how you feel? Like this is normal, people get bored?
I don't know how to feel unless it is a descriptive, unless it is a statement about human nature and human tendencies, that people concern themselves with the more urgent, i.e., not the bigger picture, but the more moment thing. You know, the pressing urgency, whether it's a business or fun.
So
that's my perspective. Otherwise, I don't relate to anything that has to do with commerce or business. So anything that has to do with that, certain things always leave me. You know, they don't strike me because I have no connection whatsoever to the world of agriculture.
So we get back to the connection, and we can leave it as a question. Is this descriptive, or what is this? We can come back later, inshallah. So thank you for sharing. So we got more perspective now. Anything else, inshallah?
It's just, I've heard this ayah a lot, but I did not think it was in the middle of a sermon, because like even for the sermon, there are certain rules. Like for the khutbah, like you have to be silent, you have to be seated, like you don't talk with anyone. So it's like even there are guidelines for the sermons. It makes the event seem more grave now that I'm realizing it was during a sermon, not just like as the Prophet was talking, something happened, they got distracted. So that's one. But then I compare it to my own self, and I find that when I do similar things, it's just the same, because if I'm ordained to pray on time, unless there is something really like preventing me from doing this, that's something that I have no excuse about, then maybe then I'm excusable. But with no excuses, I'm not excusable. So then I find that like this that I find very repulsive is something that I do. So astaghfirullah again.
Astaghfirullah. Yeah, thank you. We do it at various levels, true.
I just want to.
Yes.
We haven't read the ayah yet, right? We just talked about the hadith.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you like to share something?
No, I just want to highlight this.
Okay. So for me personally, and maybe this will answer also some of Maha's questions about, is it like a description of the human inclination? So it's not that simple, but for me, it's a matter of awareness and therefore of iman. When we read the ayah together in its context, we will realize it more, inshallah. So when our iman is not our belief, our faith is not well grounded, when it is not rooted in evidences, in shahada, in witnessing, then anything is a potential distraction. Anything can distract us and divert us from our goal in life. So when iman, when belief is weak, it means our conviction about the true purpose of our life is weak. How would you say? Weak or not very clear. Not that the purpose of life is not clear. It is not clear in our own perception, in our own inner self-perception, a perception of what is and the world and where we're heading and life in general. So as a result, we cannot remain focused on that purpose, on our purpose in life, which is to know and worship God alone. And here, for the moment, I leave it like this. We did all these years unpack this expression many times, and we may unpack it, inshallah, further. And it seems that when we are in that stand, then it seems that it's not an easy task. Then it seems like we are inclined to ghafla, inclined to forgetting, inclined to play and forget about why we're here in the world. So from one perspective, we could say it depends where we are in our journey in life, depending on our awareness. When our we are more in ghafla, that's our reality. And because it's going to take time for us to get that education, that tarbiyah, and to build up and nourish our awareness and our iman, inshallah, work for it so that it is, make room for it so that it is given, so we're ready to receive it, to receive the gift of iman. It is for this reason that in order to make it easy for us, our fitrah has been wired for iman, in the sense that only iman satisfies our heart, and we are given the need for iman, the need to be grounded, the need, we long for eternal happiness, eternal meaningfulness, eternal purpose. So we're given this fitrah that we cannot find rest when we are not grounded in iman. And at the same time, we're also given divine guidance through the Quran, through the scripture, and through the creation. In the creation, there are the ayat that guide us, and the Quran is what explains the ayat in the creation. And we've also been given messengers to teach us and remind us of the truth of this reality. So it's not easy because it needs conscious efforts. In that sense, someone can say it's not easy. It's like when we are not, even the smallest task, even driving a car, in the beginning, it seems like it's not easy until you learn it. So in that sense, before, it's until you learn it, until you acquire it, it's not easy. And the opposite of living with iman needs no effort. And that's why, that's what makes iman valuable. That's what makes anything that we make efforts for valuable. Think of a career formation, for instance. The harder it is, the more we seem to value it, especially if it has tangible results. For instance, if you want to study in medical school, it's already hard. And then if you want to go and be a surgeon, it's even harder. Not only you have to learn, but you have to work hard. You have to be very disciplined. So people tend to respect a surgeon because of all the efforts they made, and also because they are usually they help they help others.
And they are well paid.
They are well paid because it is valued, because not everyone can render the same service. So the harder it is, the more valuable, because we value the efforts and the work that is done. If someone is, for instance, an artisan or someone who has craftsmanship, the finer the craft is, the more valuable it is, the more people are going to pay for it, for instance. And we don't need, in order to not have any education, you don't need anything special. You just don't do anything and that's it. Or not to have any skill, you don't need to do anything. And the same goes for iman. So it's a gift given to those who consciously work for it. There is a conscious effort. And disbelief is easy because it requires no conscious effort. Doing nothing leaves us in a state of either disbelief or if we don't disbelieve, we don't deny, but we think we are believers, but if we never did any work, any conscious work, then we are a ghafil, a heedless believer. And it reminds me of, remember when we studied Surah Yusuf alayhi salam? Surah Yusuf is Surah number 12. At the end of the Surah, from 103 to 108, I usually remember especially 106, where we are told, وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. But before that, we are told most people, however much you might desire it, are not going to believe. And then we are told, and most of the people believe in God only while committing shirk, only while being mushrik. Illa wa hum mushrikun. They are in a state of shirk because they don't deny, but they are not conscious either. There is no effort, there is no work done. And then in Ayah 107, we are told, are they so sure that an overwhelming punishment from God will not fall on them, or that the last hour will not come upon them suddenly without their even being aware? بغتة وهم لا يشعرون, meaning like it's going to come when they the least expect it. So it's a question because lots of people are not going to deny this. I mean, no one is going to deny that we will die, but we live as though it is not part of our reality. We bracket it out of our reality and live accordingly. Subhanallah. And so in 1:8, we are told, tell them plainly, this is my way. I call unto God on the basis of clear perception. Both I and those who follow me. Glory be to God. He's free of every imperfection. Subhanallah. So this Subhanallah and Tasbih is very, very important. Remember in the Quran one very central concept is that everything is an ayah, everything in the creation, and then all those ayat, everything, they all making tasbih. And we talked about tasbih a lot. Inshallah, we'll talk about it because it comes up with this in this Surah Al-Jumu'ah as well. So it says, I and those who follow me, both I and those follow me, this is our way, calling unto God on the basis of clear perception. Subhanallah, I have not, وَمَا أَنَا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. I have nothing to do with those who commit shirk. So most people believe in God while they are mushrik, but the path that is taught to us in the Quran, the path of the prophets, the path of the Prophet ﷺ is to call unto God on the basis of clear perception. There is clear shahada evidence, subhanallah. And so you can say subhanallah after the clear evidence, and I have nothing to do with those who commit shirk. So you see, although they are still called believers, believing with shirk and the way of the Prophet it's not the same path.
Dr. Yamin, I wanted to say something.
Sure.
Regarding the story you shared in the beginning about the companions leaving the Prophet during a khutbah, a caravan. One thing is that they are in the Friday sermon, and actually when we come back to the Quranic passage in the surah, it says after the prayer, leave and go and ask for God's bounty, meaning be involved in the world with this awareness of God. So the problem is not that they rushed for caravan. The problem is they rushed for the caravan in the middle of the sermon, leaving the Prophet standing. So to our lives, how does that translate? That's one thing I think is maybe good to think about, because it isn't about just falling into ghafla, or maybe it is about falling into ghafla from time to time, because if we had longer times of awareness, then we would be among those people who, when they're in the middle of the sermon, meaning they're in the middle of refreshing Iman and remembering God, they wouldn't leave for the caravan or whatever distraction that might come. That doesn't mean they never do business or they never do things that are.
Yeah. Actually, when I'll mention the ayat that come before, that was the last ayah in Surah Al-Jumu'ah, Surah 62, and the last ayah is ayah 11. But the few ayats before it tells us about the adab of the congregation prayer and how to disperse afterwards to seek whatever you want to seek. Mm-hmm. However, it's not only about timing, but it's also in what state we go and seek. We go and seek from God's blessings. Mm-hmm. If we are seeking from God's blessings, then the trade itself or the caravan itself won't be our point of attraction. Mm-hmm. Because we will be aware of the connection with the Razaq, the provider. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So actually the text before makes it very very clear, alhamdulillah. So it's not a matter only, there is a matter of timing, definitely, as you said, but even in the timing, each thing has its own time, but even each one, still it is within the spirit of being present with God, being aware that He is the provider and that we are seeking from His fadl, from His blessing.
Exactly. So it's in symbolic significance. It isn't about, I never leave the khutbah in the middle, even if there is the, most important news. But that doesn't mean I don't like, so it's not about whether this particular Jummah prayer, it's more about the mindset.
I could be actually never leaving, but actually in the khutbah itself, I am not even present.
I'm somewhere else.
I don't even leave physically, but I may not be present there.
Yeah. So it is about what kind of mindset that we nurture outside.
Yeah. And that's important, because what makes something worldly, the activity worldly or not, is not, the trade is not a worldly activity in itself, or drinking and eating are not worldly activities in themselves. It is my perception and how I relate to them that makes them worldly for me or not. They can be a worldly activity because I am disconnected from my Rabb, therefore I am totally immersed, engrossed into those activities. Or I could be conscious of what I'm doing. I am doing them as seeking blessings from God in the name of my Rabb, the provider, and they become means to know God. They becomes means, I am aware of their glorification, their tasbihah. They become means for me to practice my own tasbih together with them. And it's not a worldly activity anymore. I'll come back to it, but I just wanted to make it clear again so that we keep this framework in mind, inshallah. It is me and how I relate to things that are going to make that's going to make things worldly or not. Mm-hmm. If I'm in ghafla, everything becomes worldly. If I'm in a state of ihsan, everything becomes beautiful worship. Alhamdulillah.
At this, at the same time, and maybe we will come back to this, but at the same time, there are these indicators of where I am. Because if I'm always finding exciting to read about politics and I'm finding boring to study my Rab speaking to me, then it can't be that I'm so connected in the politics part. Even the politics is reminding me of God. It's clearly that there's something wrong going on. So it is helpful to have those.
And vice versa. If I'm always studying the Quran, but when it comes to there is something going on, an injustice, I say, Allah is just, and yeah, Allah is just, but He also gave you. if you are involved, you at least have, how do you say, an emotional reaction. You say something, you take a stand, you pray at least with your words. You see what I mean? There is a balance between the two. Sometimes, because we don't know how, we think the activity itself is worldly or non-worldly. If I'm reading the Quran, it is worship. If I am eating, it is non-worldly. So I say Bismillah at the beginning, Alhamdulillah at the end, to try to make it as non-worldly as possible. Now, if there is for instance, an injustice going on in the around me, it could be personal, it could be at the society, at a bigger scale. If I don't, what am I going to do? Say Bismillah at the beginning, Alhamdulillah at the end. If I don't know how to deal with it, I may just ignore it. But if everyone ignores injustice, then we're not practicing something very important. One of the aims of the Quran that many scholars agree on is Maqasid al-Quran, after Tawheed, Nubuwa, and Hashr, Tawheed, oneness of God, affirming the oneness of God, resurrection, Nubuwa, prophethood, the role of the prophet, and then many include justice. And justice is not only social justice, but social justice is a part of justice in the world. For instance, so so I mentioned
I just had one more thing, Dr. Yamin, I don't know.
Yes.
But I also had a question. These are people in Medina who, in the congregation, who left the Prophet, most of whom left.
Mm-hmm.
It said only a dozen people remained. But these are people who made hijrah, so it's not like people who...
Not all of them.
Yeah, so some of them were already in Medina, but more than 12, many more than 12 left Mecca and came to Medina. They went against the society, they went against many norms, and they took sacrifices to be in Medina. So it is interesting. I don't know, like...
I don't know what time this happened, so I don't know, because the people from the Muhajirin came later. So I don't know what time this happened, but like...
Yeah, but the first mosque happens after the hijrah.
But like the point, mashallah, that Isra is bringing is that like these were pious people, like regardless on where they from, the Muhajirin or Ansar, these people were people who, who were supporting the Prophet, who wanted, they're people like us, basically, these people. And part of me thinks they were better even than me, but they were people who by choice want to be Muslims, by choice. So I mean, I cannot, it would be easy for me to say people who did that were munafiqeen, but I cannot say that because then it wouldn't be, you know, it.
But that's why there is a whole, if you go through the Quran, bearing in mind this issue of Iman, you will realize that, I mean, one of the main goals of the Quran is to establish Tawheed, and then belief in Akhirah, Hashr, resurrection, and Nubuwah. So it means it's not easy just once we say it or once we believe in it, it's not the end. We have to be able to live it in different situations, because every day we're going to have a new experience of the world. And so unless our Iman is going to expand together with our experience of the world, it can remain, although it may not fit. It's like a child is growing, but the clothes is the same. It's not going to fit. That's why Iman is something that we need to work on. It is not something to work on. I don't know even if that is a proper expression. It's something that needs to be nurtured, because it's a way of being, a way of perceiving the world, a way of interacting with ourselves and with the world around us. With the world around us and then with ourselves. It usually works the other way around. It's easier to be aware of what's going on out there, and then it takes a little more reflection to start changing what's within us. And as we change what's within us, then we are told in the Quran, Allah will change what's what's outside as well. Because even if things are the same, we won't relate to them in the same way. So it is a process. And the first Muslims were also human beings. They didn't drop from the sky full Iman suddenly. They also went through a process. And we have to also go through the process. And what they went through is something we can learn with. It reminds me of, anyway, maybe I shouldn't go there, but it's, you know, another incident where the Prophet ﷺ, it rains at night, and then after Subh prayer, the Prophet ﷺ said, some of you woke up as mu'min and some as kafir. And they were they were with the Prophet ﷺ. They were traveling together. And it's because some of them said, all rain from God, and some said, all rain, it rained because whatever their system of belief was. Now we would say because of the clouds and this and that. That time, it was some other explanation, but the explanation was not connected to God. So the Prophet ﷺ there was teaching them that be careful about how you view things, because unless he teaches them these things, they are not going to learn. And we are learning through them and through the Quran as well, inshallah. So what we learn from this is that it is a lifetime, how do you say, work maybe? It's a prayer, it's a way of living, and the more and it has to be conscious, and the more we taste it, the more we experience it, the easier it becomes, because it's so fitting to the fitra. So when we fall into ghafla, it will be, we will recognize that we are now in darkness, and we will be looking again for the light, inshallah.
Just to add, I remembered a passage in the Quran in which, again, I think it's related to the companions. The Prophet and the companions are in the middle of a battle, and they leave the Prophet, and he's calling after them to come back, not leave the battlefield. And if I'm correct, there's something like this in the Quran as well, an episode like this. So it shows again that even if you have migrated with the Prophet or supported the Prophet, even if you were willing to confront the attacks, physical attacks, and risking your life, in the middle of the battle, you can have a moment of despair and be running.
Mm-hmm. Which brings me back to what Zahra was saying, like be aware of the power of distraction, or the power of being distracted. I understand it as don't underestimate it. It's like we forgetting, not about Iman, but forgetting keys, for instance. And someone once asked me, said, mashallah, you don't forget. I said, it's not because I don't forget. It's because I don't trust myself that I won't forget. So I take precautions accordingly. I put the key in, for instance, in my shoes, especially if I'm not at home, in someone else's place, and the keys of the house or the keys of the car I need them. I'll put them in a place where I won't miss them. For instance, in my shoes. So it's when we take that into consideration, when we don't underestimate, I don't underestimate the possibility that I may forget. I totally think I could forget. So in order not to forget, what should I do? But if I say, I won't forget, so I may not forget half of the time, but half of the time I most likely something will happen and I'll forget it. So I liked what when Zahra said, like, she said, be aware of the power of distraction. And I understood it as don't underestimate it. And if we don't underestimate it and we take precautions, inshallah, it will be made easier and easier onto us. I mean, it's related to the discussion we had a few weeks ago when we said that when we're in a state of heedlessness, we forget about the reality that the world is impermanent. How do we forget? Somehow we live with that delusion as if the world is permanent, for instance. And that what is important is to realize that this is a choice. We think it's not a choice because we say, but I didn't choose it. Yes, but because we didn't choose anything else, by default, it becomes a choice. And if we don't like it, inshallah, we're talking now about believers. We hear people who are striving to live more consciously with Iman, with Ihsan, inshallah. Then, because we wake up from time to time, we start realizing that I don't like living like that blindly as if in a delusion. Yeah, okay, we don't like it, then we need to actively do something about it. Because in Surah Yusuf, in 105, maybe I missed this, I skipped it without realizing. We are told how many are the signs in the heavens and on earth which they pass by without paying any heed. So these are the people who, most people, who only believe in God while being mushrik, only with shirk. Why? clearly, because it says they passed many of the signs in the heavens on earth without paying any heed. But those who truly believe, those who are striving to remain conscious, they're going to strive, take precautions to not fall into the delusion of ghafla. For instance, we have to do something to keep ourselves aware that everything is transient. We can repeat it. We can meditate. For instance, even when the breathing meditation, we're reflecting on our breathing, just observing our breathing. Our breathing means on one hand, it's time passing and it's transience. On the other hand, is vulnerability and my life being connected to a breath. If the breath doesn't come in, that's it. There is no yamina. So they come together. The transience remind us that we are brought into existence, that everything is being sustained in existence here and now, that it's not just there sitting on its own. That's what the delusion of forgetting about transience is, taking things for granted, as if I'm here, this is how I am. So when we want to get out of the delusion, we take some precautions, some activities that keep us, remind us of this important reality. And keep in mind, for instance, the constant flow of existence, the constant flow of our breathing, for instance, the constant flow of things, not only in the seasons, now everything is also like the leaves are falling, things are changing in the world out there, and reminding us again that things are leaving. So if something is leaving, something else is replacing it. They're coming. All this activity indicates another world. They're coming from somewhere and going to somewhere. And so we start feeling the need for guidance. It's very important that we feel the need for guidance. Otherwise, we will interact with the Quran as our sacred books, whatever that means. We read it, we like it, whatever. But it does not speak to us. Therefore, it does not transform us. It's not food for our ruh, for our heart. But when I am aware of the transience of everything, then my ruh definitely will feel like, oh, what's going on? Like the ground under me is not as stable as we seem to think. Everything is flowing, everything is wobbly and unstable, impermanent. And start then feeling that need for guidance is very is something good, because then now we can taste the ayat in the Quran and in the creation. We can taste them. We can we'll be hungry for them. That's what a need is. We'll be able to, inshallah, digest them slowly. And just like we eat and drink and breathe every day, we will also do this with the need of the ruh. It is also constantly renewed, and as it is renewed, our iman, inshallah, will grow, because our knowledge of who our Rabb is and who we are as his ibad will grow, will become more and more aware of it. So when in this state, when we hear the message of the prophets, we're more likely to listen more attentively and to be more eager to apply it to our life and experience it for ourselves, that this message is indeed haqq, it is indeed the truth. But while in heedlessness, we forget that everything is passing, impermanent, because we're too too absorbed, too engrossed with the worldly life. Again, the worldly life here, it becomes worldly because of our ghafla, because of our mindlessness. And that's why, remember in the ayah we're told, truly those who do not hope to meet us and content themselves with the life of this world, they do not look beyond it. They are the heedless. They are the heedless of our, they are heedless of our ayat, of our signs. So who can content himself with the life of this world? Only the one of his heedless of the ayat, because if you are not heedless, you can't be content with. It's the reality of transience is painful to the human heart and the human soul. And actually, because it is painful, we tend to try to avoid it. But because we avoid it, then we don't appreciate the healing for it. So back to the incident when the people in Medina left for some caravan during Friday prayer, where the Prophet ﷺ was preaching. It is reported in that hadith that at the occasion, the following ayah was revealed. It's the last ayah, ayah number 11 of Surah Al-Jumu'ah, Surah 62, where we are told, yet when they see some trade or diversion, they rush towards it and leave you standing. Say, that which is with God is far better than diversion and trade, and God is the best of provider. Wallahu khairur raziqin. Wa idha ra'aw tijaratan aw lahwan infaddu ilayha wa tarakuka fa inna qa'iman, قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. Now, tijara, you can understand it as any occasion for worldly gain, not necessarily commerce, not necessarily in the marketplace, that included, but tijara is anything you give and take. It could be thought, it could be anything that represents something that the person sees as a gain, as something beneficial. And lahu is amusement or entertainment, but it also means diversion or distraction. So as I had mentioned earlier, it may seem to us that we have, this is how the conversation we had over a few days ago was like, it seems like we have more reason to be distracted in this century, because the world, it seems to us, has changed. And so it seems like more worldly. But from these kinds of ayat, and it's not the only one, there are many ayat like this, it seems that the situation was not so different 14 centuries ago. And I think that's because of what we think worldliness is. Worldliness is not a characteristic of the world as it is in itself, but as we perceive it. So it's relational. Worldliness is a relational characteristic. To the disbeliever or to the heedless, the world can be cut off from any divine source, but to the conscious believer, it is full of ayat, of signs glorifying God, as we are told at the opening of this same surah. Surah Al-Jumu'ah start with يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. Everything in the heavens and everything on earth glorifies God, makes tasbih, the sovereign, the holy, the almighty, the wise. Subhanallah. It's interesting that it starts this way, and probably next week, inshallah, I would like to go through the first few ayat at the beginning of the surah, because when we understand them, then you see the rahmah in the last ayah. So the last ayah is not coming out of nowhere. It's coming after being taught what to do. So it means that what matters the most are not the external conditions we live in or the world we live in, but our own inner state of being. Are we in ghafla or in ihsan? And that's what matters then, and what mattered that time and what matters now for us as well, inshallah. When we are in ghafla, when we are in a state of heedlessness, anything can potentially distract us. But when we are grounded in iman and in a state of ihsan, inshallah, then it becomes easier to remain focused. Actually, we are aware that the world around us reminds us of our purpose in life, rather than the other way around. Not only it does not distract us, it actually reminds us. There is no neutral. The world is not neutral. The word is يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. Everything in the heavens and everything on earth glorifies God. They all glorify him with his beautiful names. They all mirror the countenance of God. And as we are told in other passages in the Quran, so the world is not neutral. The world is not worldly or like bad or something. It's how I relate to it when I forget and I perceive it in disconnection with its source, that it becomes detrimental to me. Remember, that was the how we understood Bela last week. So before we consider this ayah, let's remember where it stands. Actually, when we see where it stands, we'll understand it more. So this is Surah Al-Jumu'ah, Surah 62. What comes before 62 is Surah 61. It's Surah As-Saf. Actually, I think we did study it together in the past. And what comes after Surah Al-Jumu'ah is Surah 63. It is called Al-Munafiqeen or Al-Munafiqun. So, or Surah Al-Munafiqeen. So the last ayah of Surah As-Saf, the surah that comes right after, right before 61, the last ayat, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, because there are 14 ayah in that surah, Surah 61, we are told, "O you who have believed, shall I point out to you a trade," the same word is used, that will save you from grievous torment? So before we come to Surah Al-Jumu'ah and it talks about a trade that distracting trade, there is another trade here. And this is, we are being called to, the believers, those who believe are called onto a trade that will save us from grievous torment. You are to believe in God and his messenger and to strive in God's path with your possessions and with your lives. This is for your own good if you but knew. If you do so, he will forgive you your sins and will admit you into gardens through which running waters flow, and into goodly mansions in gardens of perpetual bliss. That is the supreme success. And he will grant you yet another thing that you love dearly, help from God, and an imminent breakthrough, and give the believers the good news. O you who have believed, this is the last ayah now of the surah that comes before. be the helpers of God, even as Jesus, the son of Mary, said unto the disciples, who will be my helpers in God? Whereupon the disciples replied, we shall be the helpers of God. And so some of the children of Israel came to believe. I mean, the children of Israel were the people of Isa alayhi salam. Some came to believe, whereas others denied. And we have given strength against their foes unto those who have believed, and they have become the ones that prevail. So the trade that delivers from suffering and leads to the supreme success, we are told, is described in Ayah 11, and the gains of the trades are described in 12 and 13. And in 14, we're reminded that even after everything is made clear unto them, people are still free to choose either eternal paradise and supreme success or painful torment. But everything is made clear unto us first. So this is before we come to Surah Al-Jum'ah. And then in Surah Al-Jum'ah, it ends with, yet when they see some trade, meaning an occasion for worldly gain, here it's used a trade disconnected from the provider, or diversion, they rush towards it and leave you standing. Say, that which is with God is far better than diversion and trade, and God is the best of providers. So the trade for some worldly gains mentioned in this ayah distract us from worshiping God, not because the trade itself is distract, because I am not aware, or I forgot the relationship, the connection. I forgot that God is my only provider, and the one who provides me through trade or through anything else is God alone. So this is attracting my attention, and when I stop and reflect, I am going to realize that I'm having the wrong attitude because I forgot what things were. I forgot who I was. I forgot who my Rabb is. And when we forget that, it seems like trade, if we take it in the sense of commerce, is the source of my livelihood, for instance. But the livelihood could be not only money, it could be friendship, it could be intellectual trade, it could be all kinds of trade. I'm saying this because Maha was saying she doesn't relate, but trade here is anything that you give and take. So then in the next surah, in Surah 63, Surah Al-Munafiqun, it means the hypocrites. So Alia mentioned the hypocrites. So I see it as a warning when you read the three surahs one after the other. So you have Saf. Surah Al-Saf actually starts in a very interesting way. It starts with everything in the heavens. All these surahs starts with tasbih. They are all musabbihat. Everything in the heavens and earth glorifies God, and everything on earth glorifies God. He is the Almighty, the wise. O you who have believed, why do you say one thing and do another? It is most hateful with God that you say what you do not do. So this is the beginning of Surah As-Saf. And it ends with, I will tell you about a trade, so you'll be saved from painful torment, and you will be given the supreme success, but still, and be the helpers of God, but still you have the choice. Look at Isa alayhi salam, his people. He called the people around him to be his helpers. Some said yes, some denied. So after all this, after Surah As-Saf, that starts with, why do you say what you don't do? And it says, oh, you have believed. Yeah, الذين آمنوا لما تقولون ما لا تفعلون. So it's not talking to mushrikeen of Mecca. No, it's talking to the believers, those who have believed. It's not even saying al-mu'minun. It's a verb here. It's people who are making an effort, who are believing, not only describe themselves as believers and carrying on. So this is how we are going to be brought up to a higher level. So this is out of rahmah, out of compassion, because otherwise we will remain always there. If no one tells us that there is more, we wouldn't know. So in Surah As-Saf, it starts with everything makes tasbih. So why do you say what you don't practice? And that's very hateful. And you can go back to when we studied Surah As-Saf and we talked about it. And then there is Surah Al-Jum'ah 62. And then at the end of Surah Al-Jum'ah, they see the trade and leave you there standing. But then it says, but what is with God is much better, because he is the best of providers. And then comes the surah of the hypocrites. And the surah of the hypocrites starts with, when the hypocrites come to you, they say, we bear witness that you are indeed the messenger of God. God knows that you are truly his messenger, and he bears witness that the hypocrites are indeed liars. And the last 3 ayat of Surah Al-Munafiqun, which is the last ayah is 11. It has 11 ayat like Surah Al-Jum'ah. We are told, all you who have believed, do not let your wealth and your children distract you from remembering God. So here you see, it's not saying trade. Being busy with my child could be my trade. So here it says, do not let your wealth and your children distract you from remembering God. Those who do so will be the ones who lose. Will be the losers. It says, hum al-khasirun. Give out of what we have provided for you before death comes to one of you, and he says, my Rabb, oh my Rabb, if you would only reprieve me for a little while, I would give in charity and becomes one of the righteous. God does not reprieve a soul when its turn comes. God is fully aware of what you do. It started in 61 with saying something and doing something else, and it ends in 63 with Wallahu khabirun bima ta'malun. So what matters is not what we say, but what we do, because what we do is our true belief, even if we're not aware of it. That's why sometimes we say, but why do I keep doing this? I don't want to do it. Then that's the time to stop and try to find out what's going on. But when we take the precaution, when we take some steps, and that's why we need each other's help and support as well, then slowly, inshallah, we start at least at one level, that's integrity. Iman is about integrity. As much as we can. It's not going to be 100% overnight, but that's at least it's our goal. The niyyah is important. Our intention is important. Our istiqamah is important. We may not be there, but at least we are heading towards that integrity of, inshallah, living as we believe a believer should live, inshallah. At least, even if we can't do it, what matters is the istiqamah, the direction where we're heading, because it would be much more serious if we were heading the opposite direction. Heading in the opposite direction is the nifaq, is hypocrisy. It's not like I am not doing what I say, I'm not living up to what I claim I believe, but that's my wish, and I am striving, even if it is small little step one by one, at least I am in that direction. But nifaq here, hypocrisy, is actually inside, deep inside, I don't care. I just care about what people will say about it. Then there is a problem there. Because even if I'm not moving at all, at least I could be, my face is looking towards the right direction. I seek the people who live with integrity as much as possible, even if I'm not doing it myself. It means I may not be moving, but I am headed, or I am facing the right direction. But when the intention is not sincere, even when we're not doing anything, a person could be not doing anything, but facing the wrong direction. Astaghfirullah. So we have to be first, make sure we are facing the right direction. And istighfar is what keeps us in the right direction. For instance, making tawbah. Tawbah is turning back towards God. So we are facing, even if we're not moving, it's still better. Inshallah, that's how I understand it at this level at least. So it means that if we don't take the message seriously, and if we don't make the effort to how do you say, to practice it, to live with the teachings of Surah 61 and 62 and the rest of the Quran, but in this case I'm focusing on 61 and 62 because it's almost like one surah, mashallah. Then we'd end up in a state of hypocrisy, claiming something and not meaning it. So it's not only about claiming something and not doing it, but also not meaning it. And that's worse. So back to this ayah. Yes.
This connects really well with last class on Surah Kahf. There was a reference to wealth and children being part of the adornment. المال والبنون استعوذ بالله المال والبنون زينة الحياة الدنيا. And then we talked about adornment and how it's a test in the sense of not to make us distracted, but as an opportunity for us to grow, a teaching moment. And the verse continued saying that what is enduring is al-baqiyat al-salihat. That's better for you, enduring righteous acts. And similarly here, in the surah that we're looking at, Surah 61, it ends 62. It ends with, after having said that people leave the Prophet standing because of a commerce or some entertainment or distraction, say to them that which is with God is better than those. And that God is the best of providers. So I find this very interesting because, as you've just said, it's saying you are seeking something, but this is not going to quench you, what you're seeking. When we do commerce or when we do go after passing delights, we want something. We want to get rid of the pain of transience. We want to have security about our risk, our sustenance, our well-being. And this is not going to serve you. And what is interesting here is that it's not saying you hopeless people, how dare. It's not like that. It's saying, look, that which is with God is better than
seek it from God.
Yeah.
If I seek it from God, then if God says now it's time for prayer, it means right now it's not the time to seek it. Remember we talked about I think I had mentioned about like how in our life, at least in my life, I find myself compensating when we, for instance, I think I don't have time to read as much Quran or something. Then I waste much more time doing something else. And the other way around also. You say, no, I'm going to stay and focus on this first, and then I do the other work. And there is so much barakah in it. It's made so easy. And you realize it's not about time and things. It's done unto you or not, because it's most of the conditions of, for instance, if it's trade, most of the conditions of trade are not in our under our control. Someone can work harder and not get as much gain because it's fiyadillah. It's in under Allah's control. So the more we are aware of this, the more we don't feel like we've been deprived just because I was praying or something. I probably shared this with some friends, but like many years ago, I was visiting in Spain, and there was a bakery, and the owner of the bakery was a Muslim. He was wearing like the turban and abaya. I think he was a Spanish man who was a convert, and he spoke English. And so after a while, after going through the market, I couldn't find a place to pray. So we thought we're going to ask him. So when we came to the shop, we were standing just across. There was no like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, there was no one. And then the man came, and then a whole family, big group came. And when we entered and asked him about the place to pray, he showed us where it was, and he said he was coming from the Jama'ah prayer. They have Jama'ah, it was not Friday. Subhanallah, so he invited us to have tea at his home later. So later we met his family and his wife and things, and I had to tell him, I said, because when he was away praying, part of us may say, I'm going to pray, but actually I'm missing on potential customers. But I was there and I witnessed there was no customer until he came. And when he came, they all came together. But he doesn't see it. So, this is like, it's a place, so you see people. But actually it happens like that in our life sometimes. It's our own imagination. If I didn't go there, if I don't do this, as if it's going to be better for my worldly life. I will work more, I will see this, I will do that. Who said that will work for you? It's all, when we remember that's all under his control, that we are more at ease, we can trust, we can. anyway, all the stress is from fear, and fear is from not trusting God, because we forget that He is the one who has everything in control. And so that's why here it says, what is with God is better. It means seek it with God, from God. He is the best provider. He's actually the only provider. All other seeming apparent providers are only means, only channels. So lahu here is literally is amusement, entertainment, distraction, diversion, but it's actually any activity, like Alia was saying, like something that is not necessarily trivial in itself, but it is less important than what something else. If we have two activities, one of them is what we should be, is the more important, requires our attention. While it requires our attention, we go and do something else. I'll give you a very simple example in my own case. If I have to write something, if it's not something that I'm writing myself, if it's something that is required for this, for that, then I find it so hard that reading becomes my way of running away from writing. But if I have to read something, then cleaning the kitchen becomes my way. And normally I don't like cleaning the kitchen. I don't like, it's not something that I will be, it's not my hobby. But suddenly, because I have to read, I feel like, oh, but the kitchen needs to be clean. When it's clean, then I will be able to focus. So even if that activity is not trivial, it becomes a lahu for me, because it distracts me from what is more important. And here in life, it could be a diversion because of its nature. It could be the nature of the activity. For instance, it could be something of an illicit nature, or because of our own heedlessness, in which case we fail to perceive the relationship of everything to God, everything good, let's say, to God. And in this case, trade, and again, trade means anything that brings us, or that we believe brings us some benefit, some gain. And that's why we told that which is with God is far better than lahu, than diversion, distraction, and trade. Why? Because God is the best of provider. Allahu khairu, wallahu khairu raziqin. So we could do our best and still fail our business. That's not the point. It seems to us that when what's the opposite of failing? Succeeding? It seems like when I succeed, it's because I'm good at it. I did it. No, because sometimes you could show the same performance, but for reasons totally beyond our control, things won't work as well. So to keep that in mind, that everything is under our Rabb's control, is seeking from God and wanting what is from God. So it's not like, maybe it was not clear the way I said it. It's not like what I get from the trade is one thing. What I get from God is something different. No. What I get through trade is also what I get from God. I just may be aware of it or not aware of it. And when I'm aware of it, I don't only get the material wealth, for instance, if it is commerce, but also the spiritual, the immaterial, the wealth for the soul, for the heart, for my iman increases, my iman in akhirah, in God, in akhirah, everything increases. All that is beyond any price. And that's the trade. That's the trade mentioned in the previous surah. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So that is the trade. That is the real trade. Because anything else, even if I get my goal of finishing this and getting this promotion and doing this and being successful in XYZ way, the real trade isn't that. The real trade is because all of this is passing, and really, it's, as it was in last class, it's like chef, or how is it said? Just the earth becomes beautiful, and then in the fall time, it just withers away, all the leaves. And so whatever I invest in this world, even if I become a billionaire at the end, it isn't really enduring, and it's passing. It's just a passing delight. So my trade, our trade should be that we seek the face of God in what we do and see the face of God, and that's the trade. That's what we get. That's better than what we are seeking in commerce or in entertainment. So it's all fitting together.
Mm-hmm.
Lessons that we were happy. It's all is really fitting together.
Yeah.
I'm encouraging also because it gives us something positive to focus on. Distractions always there, and for myself, ego is always finding its excuses to indulge in really bad trades, forgetfulness. But if I focus myself in saying I want to go out in the world with this aim, this as you said, the direction of seeing God's signs and glorifying God through what I do, that is the real trade, inshallah. And that's better, much better.
That's the trade that we are being taught. That was mentioned in the previous surah, and that is being taught in this surah. I'll just mention the ayat that come before 11, which is the last ayat that we just mentioned. But it seems like I won't have time to go through them. Next week, inshallah, we can do 9 and 10, and if possible, 1 to 4, or it could be the other week. It depends on how much everyone has to share. So I just want to share the 2 ayats before 11, so we have an idea. So this is in Surah Jumu'ah again, still. Surah 62, Ayah 9, we're told, all you who have believed, when the call to prayer is made on the day of congregation, Yawm al-Jum'ah, hurry towards the remembrance of God and leave off your trading. That is better for you if only you knew. Then, so this is Ayah 10, then when the prayer has ended, disperse in the land and seek out God's blessing. Remember God often so that you may prosper. So it's not only a matter of timing. When the call to prayer is made on the day of congregation, hurry towards the remembrance of God and leave off your trading. That is better for you. Then it says, when the prayer has ended, disperse in the land and seek out God's blessing. So the trading here is explained. Maha, does it make sense? So the trading is whatever God's blessing is for you. We are always seeking God's blessing it doesn't have to be material, it could be in any kind of blessing. That is our trade. But it says, seek it from God. Be aware that it is God's blessing. Remember God often so that you may prosper. Everyone is doing the trading for what? For prosperity. You want to prosper? Remember God often. And then the last one, the last ayah comes, which is, yet when they see some trade or diversion or distraction, they rush towards it. It said rush towards the prayer. They rush towards this and leave you standing. Say that which is with God is far better than all that, the distraction and the trade, and God is the best provider. And that's the end of Surah Al-Jumu'ah. So inshallah, we'll leave it to next week. But can you see how so compact, so consistent, so beautifully put together to guide us? Like if you didn't get it, it's repeated each time, it's repeated, but each time from a different perspective, from a different angle. Subhanallah, so intricately put together, this ayat, these truths, this, alhamdulillah. So it's teaching us the trade. The true trade is to seek God's blessings, whether in commerce or in anything else. Seek it as God's blessing. Be aware of that. Remember God often. If you remember God often, then you will, inshallah, will remember that it is His blessing. And then can you imagine, even for a material wealth, it won't be only material wealth, it will be wealth for the heart, for the soul. It will be overwhelmingly beautiful in its meaning, meaning as a gift from God, as a reminder of akhirah, as a reminder of the eternal beautiful names of God. So it becomes how do you say, like myriad, multiple times much more than it is when we see it only as superficially as material wealth and nothing else. It becomes an ayah, it becomes a mirror to the beautiful names of God. It becomes a messenger from ghaib, from the world of the unseen, telling us about God, about the world to come, about all what we long for. That is the success supreme, we were told in the other surah. That trade, when you learn that trade, not only you will avoid the painful torment, but also you will reach prosperity and the most supreme success في الدنيا وفي الآخرة إن شاء الله. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Inshallah, we'll come back to these ayah 9 and 10 next week, inshallah.
Inshallah. And before we close, are there any comments, questions? It will be great to hear from you at this time.
Isra, I will just say a quick comment so people can comment after me. Jazakallah kulla khair. And like the two, the clear message for me is that if we, like, if everything we do it for a gain. And like the clear message is like last time, like you were saying, Isra, like do not, so God is saying, do not be satisfied with the smaller game. Like, like go for the real game, go for the ultimate game. Like, yes, there is some gain, but
For the permanent,
yes, go for the permanent gain. This gain is very transient. You are worth more than this gain. So as if God is saying, like when he is like comparing us to cattle, like cattle are going for gain, like they're eating something, it makes them grow, makes them fatter, makes them taste, there's all these things. They even have like different tastes, but that's where it stops. So he says, like, but for them, that's what they were created for. So God is saying, I created you with a far much more potential. So don't be satisfied with the same gain that cattle will be satisfied with. You have a soul that yearns for eternity. So only be satisfied with things that take you there. So that was my first point. The second one, I like the example that you gave about growing into, like, trying to keep someone growing within the same like tight clothes that they had younger. So it seems like that every time, and that's why the messages for us believers, it seems that like even if a believer, if we're on and off, we still are in the tight clothing. But if we're continuously seeking that eternal connection, the eternal gain, the food of the soul, then our connection with God will grow with us. Like every experience will grow that connection. So our iman, if our iman like is that clothes, it will keep growing with the experiences. So even if we get gain, but we don't grow with it, and our iman doesn't grow, it's still, even it was like a taste, and I feel it a lot. Like I feel like I taste eternal beauty, but then I almost like it's as if I have an on and off button. So I taste it sometimes, I don't taste it the others. And what I'm hearing is like you need to keep working on it. Like, this is why these ayahs are there. You need to keep working on it until it keeps growing. Like the on and off is not taking you anywhere.
That's the purpose of our life. Like we didn't come here to do this and that. We came here to work on this, and all our other activities are the means to practice this. They are not the goal, or they are not an alternative. We don't have parallel lives. We're not supposed to have parallel lives, like one, I do my job and then I do this. In the beginning, yes, because we don't know how to put them together. But once we get the hang of it, the aim is to, as you put it beautifully, Alia, thank you, to seek that eternal permanent gain, to learn how to trade with everything we do and trade it into something, seek the eternal within and permanent gain within the impermanence, because that's what we are taught in the Quran.
And last one is I was listening to your Fatiha. So it's on YouTube if anyone wants to go back and listen to Dr. Amina's like halaqat on Fatiha, and you were explaining the word alamin, and as ilm, like, is to know, and alamin is like, it's interesting, like Arabic being a language of faith, like alamin is the creation that makes known. So the word alamin is a creation that makes known, that makes its Rabb known. So if we keep looking, like it's interesting, the word universe in English versus alamin in Arabic, which means the creation that's here to make known, to make its Rabb known. Like I just find it a very powerful one that like ties in like today's discussion. Jazakumullah kulla khair. And now, like, please, like, I don't want to be the only one who's always talking. So please, like, everyone, like, your thoughts is what makes it settle in. Like, as you're talking, it will settle in you, and it will help it settle in us as well. So please be generous and share your thoughts. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. Can everyone hear me?
Wa alaikum salam, yes.
Dr. Emil, Jazakallah khair for this session. I feel like, alhamdulillah, like every single time, I decide that I don't want to come, but then I end up coming. I feel like as you keep saying, like everything is for a purpose, everything is for a reason. And I find so many gifts and gems through you when I attend these lectures. And some of the things that came to me is, subhanAllah, it's something that I've actually been struggling with recently is, so I'm in class like Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 3:30 with just a lunch break. And so that lunch break like falls right before Dhuhr, and then by the time class ends, I guess prayer time, like Dhuhr prayer passes. So some days like I will quickly rush, like take a 5-minute break and then I will go and pray. But other days, I'm anxious because I think, oh my God, I'm going to miss these notes, or I'm going to be marked tardy, or, the teacher is going to be upset with me, all these things. So I think hearing that your message today just brought a lot of ease and a lot of comfort, and just that reminder, like I was feeling like this feeling of discomfort was given to me. So I would come back home and I would make up my prayers, but there was this a discomfort, a guilt almost, that I always put Allah last. So or I tend to put importance of like, the things in this dunya, like, oh, I'm taking this course and this course will give me, a degree, blah, 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 all these things. So subhanAllah, just putting it back into that framework, into that perspective of, this life is transient, everything is passing. And the one who is like, I'm going to school and I'm learning this knowledge, but the knowledge is from Allah. So the people who are even teaching me, like, this knowledge is coming to them. So even like my anxiety of like, oh, I'm going to miss it, like it's a I guess a delusion that I have, and therefore I delay my prayer, I miss my prayer. So it's a beautiful reminder. It's something that I am still struggling with, but I think I needed to hear this, and I needed to be reminded, and it brought meaning and clarity to that feeling of discomfort or guilt, or whatever this feeling that I felt every time I miss, prayer, because I am giving importance, as that hadith that you started with, of like the caravan coming and everyone leaving. So I'm like giving importance to the worldly things while forgetting, who is the one who's sustaining me or giving these worldly things. So Jazakallah khair. And I thought I would share that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Practically, I would have my wudu before, and when it's tell the teacher, go and speak to him during office hours or something, explain the situation, and then you just leave. If you're ready, you have your wudu, you leave, you pray, you come back. If you think you're going to miss something, leave your phone recorder on when you are not there, and then you will see what happened when you are not there, and that's it.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you.
Usually professors are understanding.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I don't know if it's just how we've been conditioned to think, or I don't know, it's just, I think it's maybe a ghafla in me that I am almost like afraid to bring this up with my teachers. Like, I'm like, oh, I don't know what it is, or what stops me.
I made lots of friends through, even when I was like a teacher myself or something. Sometimes I would be in a building where my office is not there, and I have to go and leave, like in between two classes, I have to pray. So I remember once I asked the secretary, and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, there's nowhere to hear. I don't know." Like there were no classes free. And she asked the head of the department. It happened that she was the secretary of the head, and he said, "Oh, please use my office." He went. I was going out for coffee anyway. So, and you are welcome to come and pray here. So, for instance, I remember once I was my car was broken down, and I was at the dealer, and I asked, "Where can I pray?" Because it was time. So they didn't know, and then they showed me a corner. So I was praying there, and I realized suddenly, when I finished praying, a person came. It's a place where I went many times. I didn't know that the manager was Muslim, and the manager told me that their head is Muslim, and so you never know. Sometimes it can open doors even.
Yeah, subhanAllah, jazakallah khair for sharing.
Yeah, you can even make friends, inshallah.
So, Jazakallah khair Tasneem for sharing, and like the idea about prayer. Like, I think the anxiety about, like, asking for a spot to pray, like, if you can think about like praying as like as if you like, which is true, like, every piece on earth where you pray on bring barakah, like it brings barakah to the place. So then, like, when you're asking for a place to pray, it's not like, it seems like a situation where you are in need of the other people, but if you can think, I'm actually going to do this place a service, like I'm actually going to bring barakah.
Yeah, most people are respectful when you say prayer, and most people, even if they don't care about prayer, they like helping. Most people. So they would just say, like at the airport and everything, I always go and ask, because you don't want to go in a corner and attract attention or something. Those hostesses and things, they always go and tell me, like, come behind the counter. They'll be there waiting, and they say, some of them ask questions, some of them tell you, oh, like African Americans here in Philadelphia, many will say, I have a cousin who is Muslim. You wouldn't know that she knows about the salat and things.
I mean, while we're being anecdotal, I want to share that one time my mom was visiting, and she had to do her prayers outside, and we were in Whole Foods parking lot, and there was no way we will make it home on time. So I said to my mom, "You go ahead and please pray, and I'm going to watch you. Don't worry." And it's very unusual. She's from a Muslim majority country. She doesn't ever pray outside unless it's like a picnic or something. So she was like, "Are you sure?" I said, "That's fine. Just in this corner, there, no car. Just pray here." She was praying, and then there was a car parked there, and a woman and her mom, I think, they came and sat in the car, and they started looking at my mom, and I started panicking. I said, "They're looking at it and they're saying, how dare she's praying?" All these thoughts, given my background and cultural situation, is she's upset. Maybe she's gonna complain. Because they watched my mom pray, and I was like, no way. And then after my mom finished, the lady came and said, I don't know what you were doing. What were you doing? And I said, she needs to pray. This is before sunset. She had to do her prayer, and she was like, we were so touched, my mom and I. We watched you. It's so beautiful that in the middle of your day, you guys are taking time to pray. We found it very touching. That's why we watched you. I was like, wow. So just another anecdote to, and even if the person is crazy and upset with you and insults you, so what? The real thing that's enduring is your connection with God. What's passing is this person said this and that person said this, all passing.
But just bless bless everything and everyone and pray to God, and Allah makes it inshallah.
Is there anybody else who wants to share? Any comments, any questions about today?
Can I share a quick story?
Sure, inshallah.
So it reminded me, we were talking about, just being mindful that blessings are from God, that, Allah is your sustainer and all sustenance comes from Him. So I'm in the process where I'm, had applied for another job, was offered a job, and I'm also going to take this opportunity to ask for some du'as, please, to see which way I need to go. So I was offered this job, but at a pay level that I was not expecting. Like it was lower than I was expecting. And so I caught myself kind of doing this conversation of like what I deserve and what I earn. And then all of a sudden the thought came to me, because I was kind of nervous, like, well, maybe I shouldn't ask for more because, maybe that'll like the opportunity won't exist for me anymore. And then all of a sudden it came to me that what I have is being given to me from God. And so this isn't the organization's money that's coming to me. It's through Allah. It's flowing through Allah to me. And when I started thinking that way, I like the fear of like entering pay negotiations kind of went away. And I was like, well, I might as well, because if this is coming from God, if it's going to come from Him, regardless of what amount I ask for, obviously it wasn't astronomical. It's from Him, so I shouldn't have a fear or hesitation of going forward and saying, you know what, I was looking for something different. And that just changed it. It was really cool to just have that feeling.
MashaAllah. Afterwards, the worst, the pay will remain the same. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Thank you for sharing.
Zahra, thank you for that example, because that example is an example that really tests if you believe or not. Like, so in that example, like you looked at the value that God gives you. And you looked like not only that, but you looked at the risk coming from Him. So like you deserve what God gave you as a gift, like that deserves acknowledgement. And what's coming is also from God. So like two ways of acknowledging. Thank you for sharing. This is really great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. MashaAllah.
Okay, anyone else? All right, so we will stop here for now. Jazakumullah khair, Sister Yamina, and everyone else who participated, Sister Alia and everyone else. And we will continue this conversation and this reflection, inshallah, next week. And in the meantime, if anything comes to you, or if you feel that there are certain things that are connecting in your life with the Quran, please feel free to share next time, inshallah.
Inshallah, yes, please share.
Okay. All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you.